What impact does sweet versus spicy brines have on the final flavor? Let's find out together as we turn up the tasty. We recently published a video where we were testing the impact of wet brining pork chops. Like, what type of impact does that really have? And we did a really simple brine. Why brine at all? Well, because it really makes the meat more tender and helps it retain its moisture as it cooks. And in our experiment, we wet brined it for only 4 hours, and it did have an impact. Not a major impact, but it did have an impact. So we're here today to really expand upon the question of what type of impact does brining have on the meat. So to begin with, you'll see right here we have pork chops. They're cut about 1.5 inches thick. And I really do like to cook with a thick pork chop. A lot of times they sell them really thin. We show you other places on the channel how to cut your own pork chops from a pork loin. Today we're going to test the impact of sweet versus spicy as part of the brine. Now, in its simplest form, a brine is just water and salt. Here I have 1 cup of water, and I'm going to add 1/2 tablespoon of salt to that. Now, that's not a lot of brine. It really isn't, but I'm only gonna brine 1 pork chop. And we're gonna whisk that together, let the salt dissolve, and this will be our control, the same way we did it last time, right? Now, if you're cooking more meat, you're obviously going to need more brining solution. There's a lot of thought out there that you should boil your brine. And while that might be true, I don't think it is true for simple brines, just involving salt and water. I don't think that's necessary. So here, what we're going to do is we're gonna set up our control. Paper bag, pork chop, water, salt water, and set that to the side. I have some more water, so we're gonna add that in, and now we're going to do our sweet. 1 cup of water, 1/2 tablespoon of salt. And now, for our sweet, I have brown sugar. And because I really wanna see the impact that this has on the final product, I'm going to kind of go a little extreme with it, I think. I am going to use 2 tablespoons of sugar, because I really want to know what type of impact does this have. If I were going to mix in more flavors, I might go less, but I really want to see how much of this sweet flavor gets into the pork chop. So now we're going to go ahead and get that mixed together. And you might have to whisk for a little bit to get all that salt to dissolve, but eventually it will. Now that that is whisked, let's go ahead and let it do its magic.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
As you can see, the pork chop is perfectly and 100% submerged in the liquid. Now I'm gonna rinse out this bowl, make sure I don't get any of the sweet with the spicy, and I'll be right back. All right, so now we're gonna make the spicy brine. 1 cup water, again, 1/2 cup of salt, again. And now we're going to use red pepper, dried red pepper, and I'm gonna go with 2 tablespoons. Now, I think really here is where we enter the question, should we be boiling this brine? And maybe we should, because that will actually help draw out some of the spice. But when I thought about doing this experiment, I wanted to keep it really as simple as possible. Like, how would the average Joey do it at home, right? Are they gonna boil and then let that brine cool down and then put it in a bag? Maybe. I just wanted to make the case. I think that there is a case and a reason why maybe you should consider boiling this particular brine, but I also wanted to keep them even. Now I will say, even without boiling that, it's only been about a minute and those red peppers are already starting to have an instant impact on the color. Truthfully, same with the brown sugar. And there they are, just by way of example. You can see the brown sugar color there. You can see the red pepper coloring there. Now we're gonna let these brine for 12 hours and then throw them on the grill. Okay, so we have a little bit of video magic going on here. These went into the refrigerator last night at 10 p.m. It's now 10 a.m. So they've been brining for 12 hours. Starting right here, there's our control, just water and salt. As you can see, there's really not a lot of distinct color to the bag. It looks about the same as we put it in. Let's take a look at this chop itself. Put it out here for everyone to see. Looks like a pork chop. Not much to report there. Over here we have, this is our brown sugar. As you can see, it looks about the same as it did from the moment after I put it in the bag. Now that is interesting. You can see that pork chop actually has more of a honey color to it. I don't know, come on in, take a look. You can see it right there, a little bit more of a honey color. Interesting. Now here's our red pepper flakes. Now I would say that's a much deeper color than what we had right after we put it in the bag, but let's see how the chop looks. Okay. Definitely looks different. It looks more red. It definitely looks more red. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and pat these off. Get off those red pepper flakes, get them nice and dry because we're gonna grill these. And we wanna get them to get a nice sear, and we can't do that if they're wet. The other thing I'm gonna do here on this one is I'm gonna actually wipe off those red pepper flakes. I think that that would directly, if I bit into one of those, it would directly impact the flavor. And I just really wanna try to isolate the impact of the brine, not the pepper itself on the meat, which I know is gonna have a spicy flavor to it. So once I get these patted off and dried, we're gonna fire up that grill and get these cooking. All right, we got this grill ripping hot. We have it set up for 2-zone cooking. First over direct heat and then over indirect heat. These are thick chops, 1.5 inches thick. And if we cook them over direct heat, they're probably gonna burn. So we're gonna sear them, we're gonna move them to the indirect heat and cook them until they reach an internal temperature of 140 to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you may be wondering, Joey, how will you know the difference between the sweet versus the spicy? Well, I was wondering the same thing myself. So I put a toothpick in, 1 in the sweet, 2 for the spicy. Our general brine has no toothpick. So with that said, let's get them cooking. We're gonna rotate them at about 1.5 minutes, 45 degrees, get those nice sear marks. If we can, flip, do the same process, move to indirect heat. All right, so these cooked took a little longer per turn than I thought. It's a little chilly fall day out. 10 minutes over direct heat with flips every about a rotation every 2 minutes or so. They're at an internal temperature right now of about 90 degrees. You can take a look at the color and you can probably hear that dog barking in the background. He clearly wants these chops, I'm telling you that. But we're gonna close this up and we're gonna let those reach that internal temperature. All right, these are done cooking. They took about 10 minutes on indirect heat. Total cook time for these, direct and indirect, was about 20 minutes. And before I cut in, I just thought I'd share some of the visual results I'm seeing right now. Over here, we have the sweet pork chop, 1 toothpick. And you can see this got some really good color. I think you'd kind of expect that with the sugar promoting the caramelization as it cooks. Picked up a little additional color over here. Maybe was there a hot spot on the grill? Don't really know, but overall it has a really nice color. The control of salt only doesn't look as good. It's a little blonder in color. I mean, it doesn't look as good on sear only. It didn't really get a great sear on either side. And it was moved around the grill, so I'm not really sure what's causing that. It was dry, but it's a nice golden color. And then over here was really the most surprising part for me is our spicy red pepper chop. I think actually looks the best. It has a really excellent, it's like a hickory color almost. It's caramelized, it looks really great. Now it's time to see how they turned out. They all were pulled off at about an internal temperature of 140. I think one reached about 143 degrees. So let's go ahead and cut a few slices there. Over here. All right, I have my beer. Now let's see how they taste. First with the control right here, salt only, salt brine only, that's it. It's good. I mean, what else can I say? It tastes like a pork chop to taste. We have that even salt throughout the bite. It's moist, tender. It's really good. I mean, nothing is worse than a dry pork chop. That's why you gotta make sure to pull it off at the right temperature. I like right at 140 to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweet or spicy first. Will they be sweet? Will they be spicy? Will it have no impact? Only one way to determine that. I'm really surprised by that. I actually thought that this would be really sweet. It's not. There are subtle tones to that of sweetness, but it's not overpowering. I thought I added a lot of brown sugar. I thought to myself, if I added 2 tablespoons of brown sugar directly to the pork chop, that would be a lot of sweet. That would almost overpower it. That was the sort of mindset I had in adding those 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, but that sweet is very mild. I mean, it definitely had an impact. The brown sugar had an impact. It is sweeter. For me, I'm not necessarily a sweet meat kind of guy. I don't really like that flavor profile with my meat. So I would probably, based upon these two, I'd probably gravitate more towards the salt only. Let's finish the test over here with the spicy. Will it be spicy? Got a little, like the faintest color of pink in there. There's almost no heat to that. Almost none. If you have kids or people that are just averse to any kind of heat profile, I don't even think they pick up the pepper there. Now, it is a different flavor from the salt only, and actually one that I prefer. It feels like a more full flavor. There's a certain, golly, almost kind of like a richness to it. Now, maybe some of you are saying, well, Joey, you should have boiled that to really bring out the heat of the peppers. So maybe that's the next one we're gonna have to do. I don't really know. I mean, we saw the color in the bag. It was clearly those flavors had come out of the peppers. Those peppers had taken on a different color in the bag when I pulled them out, but all in all, what I would say is that they do have a little bit of flavor, but clearly the salt is doing most of the heavy lifting. You can taste the salt end to end. It was mild, it was not overpowering, it was pleasant. Now, part of the reason I did this, because I see all these recipes out there that call for all these different ingredients going into the brine, and I was really curious, like, what difference does any of that really make? And based upon this test, I'm not really convinced. I'm not really convinced that you would really need anything more than just salt and water to create a moist and tender pork chop. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. As you can see, I got a lot of work to do right here in front of me. Of course, maybe the dog will get a bite too, who knows? Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.